Welcome to the 5 a.m. grind. Horace, what's up, man?
Nothing much. What's up with you?
It's good. It's good. How's business? How's real estate?
Real estate?
Yeah.
I think it was 2-3 weeks ago where I was like, okay, August is kind of picking up. So
Yep.
my guess was that the Canadian real estate market was turning around, but the stats actually came out recently and it went down again.
Oh, really?
So yeah, we're close to, since March, I would say anywhere between 25 to 33% drop.
So volumes are down, but prices are up.
Prices are up. They said so. I think the stats was like
Yeah.
year over year, mind you. So price from last year, August, to this year, August, was up between 12 to 19%. I don't remember what the number was exactly. So what that means is they're now no longer giving us a month-to-month increase.
Yeah.
Because in the beginning, they're like, oh, month over month, it went 20, 30%, right? They're like, the spike is going up or whatever. And then last year, whatever, it's gone above like 30% or whatever it is, right?
Yeah.
So if they're not giving month to month, they're saying there's 12 to 19% from last year. My assumption is month over month, it may have dipped or stayed the same.
Oh, it's decelerating. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So the real estate board doesn't reveal that stat?
No. I mean, I could not find it.
Oh, you couldn't find it. That's
the thing
interesting.
is that like they only advertise the stuff that looks good.
Of course.
Yeah, so like year over year, it's still up
Yeah.
like 19%.
There you go. Real estate board,
Yeah, because here's the thing though. Earlier this year, how many people? I think even June, July,
Yeah.
we were down 25% in terms of volume since March. How many people knew about that? Nobody. Everybody just heard like, oh my God, transactions are going up. Prices are going up 20, 30%, panic, whatever. But in reality, 1 out of 4 transactions disappeared, right?
Yeah.
Since March. So, and usually from March, you do have volume go up. It doesn't go down, it goes up. So it's actually more than 1 out of 4 disappearing because it should be going up. But March was above average just because the economy opened up for a little bit and people started buying. Regardless, the point is it's difficult to say where it's going or how things should be because the numbers are all out of place. When it's supposed to be busy, it's not. When it's not supposed to be busy, it is because of lockdowns, because of fear, because of quantitative easing, because of COVID money, because of all these other variables. But the point is that I think personally that we are seeing kind of a slowdown in the real estate market for some time.
Yeah.
But we're just the stats that we choose to publicize are the ones that are favoring the market to gear it up to make it go.
Interesting. So I did want to start this week's podcast with a listener question, and this listener just wanted us to clarify what it is that you and I do in terms of our professions.
Okay.
So would you want to go first? Do you talk about your background, and then I'll cover mine?
Do they want to ask what we did before or what we're doing now?
What you're doing now.
Yeah. So I am a co-founder of a law firm with my brother out of basically Toronto. And we do all sorts of transactions. We're in a few different practice areas. Real estate you hear a lot because that seems to be the most, popular topic of discussion on this podcast and in general. But we do family law, we do corporate law, we do a few things, a few different areas. So we've been doing that for the past couple of years. I think at least 5-6 years, I would say.
Nice.
But yeah, so it's a good and interesting journey.
All right.
What else do they want to hear?
No, I think that's it.
That's it.
That's it. I'll cover mine. So I am a recent entrepreneur. I am the founder of Vertical CPA, which is an accounting firm that provides CFO services to startups, small business, and e-commerce businesses. Before launching this firm that provides CFO services, I used to work at Apple in finance and strategy. I'm basically a career finance and accounting professional that recently started his own practice called the Vertical CPA.
Yeah.
And your law firm's name?
Treadstone Law.
There you go.
You know what? So at least on the YouTube, we'll put the links to our websites.
Oh, in the descriptions below. Yeah, just like all YouTube.
We'll keep them permanently there.
Yes, we should.
Yeah.
We should. All right, perfect. So for this week's podcast, I thought we'd talk about an interesting issue, which I think we've always sort of skirted around, but never really fully covered. And that is employee versus entrepreneur. I wanted to cover the following questions. So what do you think is better, being self-employed or being an employee? And then I wanted to sort of cover sub-questions out of this topic. So number 2, what are the benefits of being employed? What are the downsides of being employed? What are the benefits of being self-employed? And then downsides of being self-employed, I should say employed. So why don't we start? So what are the benefits? We'll cover the first question, which is, what do you think personally is better, being self-employed or employed?
Me, self-employed, without a doubt.
Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. For me personally, I guess.
Yes.
I guess it's everybody's decision, all that good stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
But there's hands down, it's self-employed.
No doubt. Okay, so for me, I'm a newly self-employed person. So I can't really say, although I've wanted to do this for a long time, to become self-employed.
But okay, so let me ask you this question then. What got you to be self-employed?
We'll cover this in the podcast because I think the downsides of being employed outweigh the downside of being self-employed.
So it wasn't a pull, it was a push.
Yeah.
Push away from employment as opposed to pull into self-employment.
Correct. I think it was a bit of a pull and also a push. It was a bit combination of both. Combination of both. Okay, so we've covered that. That was an easy question to answer. And then maybe we can spend a lot of time on just the pros and cons. So the benefits of being employed, clearly, and you know what, why don't you add some flavor and context to this? I was going to say benefits of being employed very quickly. Here are 3 of them. You have a steady paycheck, so the pay is very predictable. You have no stress or responsibility. So unlike you, I would imagine, you worry about everything in your firm, from who's going to clean the washroom to how much you're going to be. How much revenue you're bringing, right?
Yep.
As a person who is an employee, you don't have to worry. You just go there and do your job.
Yep.
And number 3, I was going to say fixed working hours. And I put question mark beside this simply because I just worked a job. I was an employee. Yeah. I can tell you it's not necessarily fixed hours. I think a lot of employment now is moving away from fixed hours as well.
I mean,
you're required to be available when your employer needs you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, okay, so let's kind of dive into this a little bit more. Because you said no stress or responsibilities and fixed working hours, which a lot of people who are employed like, hey, that's so wrong,
it's no longer fixed.
Yeah.
I would say maybe some jobs.
So, and people be like, there's stress with work.
Yeah.
And there's responsibilities and all of that. So I would argue when we say that, we're looking at both sides, right? When you say fixed working hours, sure, there's not a lot of like structure in terms of 9 to 5 anymore.
Yeah.
But you at least, if you want, you can take a day or 2 off and not think about work. Right? You can come back to it. When you're self-employed, often enough, that may not be the case, especially in the beginning.
Yeah.
You're working all the time. You're working over the weekends. If something happens in the middle of the night, that's your issue. You know what I mean? Everything ends at you, and it's a whole different type of work than working overtime. Right? Responsibilities, same issue, right? You have responsibilities to your team, you'll have responsibilities to your department and all of that. But when you are having your own firm or anything like that, your responsibility is to all of the stakeholders.
Yeah.
At nowhere will you be working where you're responsible to all of the stakeholders. When you're working, you're responsible to your clients, you're responsible to the vendors, you're responsible to again, the cleaning staff, your employees, all the clients that walk through the door, good or bad, right? Everything, right? And so that responsibility is at such a high level, I would say, that responsibility is very contained, and the hours are very contained as an employee. Yeah. They're definitely very, very contained, because when you're working for yourself, you're responsible for everything. And there is no hours. You're on all the time. You have to be on. If you get a call 10 p.m., 1 a.m., you can't say, oh, my God, I start shift at 9.
Yeah.
No. You make sure that the problem is solved, right?
Yeah.
There's countless times, even now, if there is an issue happening in the business, And like my employees, they may not have heard about it
Yeah.
until they're walking at 9, but I'm already there at 7 because I knew at that point, and I got to work to make sure that we're going to be working to find a resolution.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a lot of those things going on. So that's ensure there's more hours, but it's definitely not the same when you're self-employed.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. Downsides of being employed.
Okay.
What I have in this category are things like job security. So meaning that it's not always secure. A job isn't always secure. Sometimes you have the illusion that there's security. We've talked about this before. And limited upside in terms of just salary, so money, and limited upside in terms of just career growth.
Yeah.
Would you agree with the downsides of being employed? Are those it?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, those are the biggest things. Job security, I guess, is the biggest downside
It
because
is.
it's an illusion. There's an illusion there. There's just people get comfortable. Here's the thing. You might be working for the same place for 10, 15, 20 years, and you just feel like very, very comfortable doing the same thing day in, day out, and that's good. It may be good for you. But then the day you're walked out, it may be difficult for you to go pick up a new skill because you haven't done it for so long. You know what I mean? And it's not just the employer's fault, it's your own fault for like kind of staying there, right? So, but people assume that because I'm here now, I've been here for the past 10 years, right? I'm going to be here for the next 10 years. But it's like that black swan thing, right?
Right. I was going to go to
turkey?
that. Yeah. No, why don't you say it? Because you like that analogy.
So, yeah, I love the turkey analogy because it's like 100%. It's like the turkey thinks that the farmer is his best friend because every day he brings him some food, right?
Yeah.
But he's his best friend until the day before Thanksgiving when his head gets chopped off, right? But the thing is like you don't see it coming, and it's so monumental that like it's not like the turkey's going to recover from that. You know what I mean? It's just going to be dinner. That's it.
Yeah.
So it's the same thing. So you could be fed for the next 10, 20 years until the day you're walked out, and then what are you going to do?
Correct.
Right?
The job security one is an interesting one simply because you're right. It is very much an illusion that people have. Because especially in today's day and age, the way technology and disruption is happening, change is occurring in industries faster than ever before.
Yeah.
So we've discussed it on this podcast before in another episode. If you think you are going to be doing the same job for the next 10 years while the world is changing so quickly, you're kidding yourself.
Yeah.
You're kidding yourself. Half of the companies that are like the biggest companies today, like even take Uber, Airbnb, these massive companies that are over $1 billion didn't exist 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Right? And they're massive companies.
Yeah.
So you're kidding yourself if you think you're going to be doing the same job and it's not going to change or be disrupted. That's one. Number two as well, and I was reading an article in the Globe and Mail about just job security, which we've talked about before. I don't know the podcast or privately. Is you see a lot of people, they sort of reach their 50s in a company, then they're just walked out because they've hired someone else who's younger for that job or they've outsourced the job, etc. And then these 50-year-olds are having a hard time obviously finding a job because it's tough to rebrand yourself at 50. So they're starting businesses at 50. Yeah, and you're expensive. You are. You command a salary of, I don't know, over 200K. So you are expensive.
The thing is that any big corporation, right? And I'm not talking a small or medium. They tend to be flat, but bigger corporations, it's going to be a pyramid. It's a pyramid scheme. There's going to be less people promoted in each level. So just by the dimensions of it all, you're not going to make it to the top. Only one person is going to become the CEO. Out of everybody in that company, only one person is the CEO at the same time. And then you might have like a few executive VPs, right? And a little bit more that are senior VPs and all the way down, right? So it gets a little bit more as you go further down. But there's only one CEO. And as you go up, right? Unfortunately, it's a kind of an up or you're out type of mentality. Because if you're in that same rung for long enough, right? Well, you're expensive now, right? There's not enough spots in front and on top of you because somebody else may have taken it. And until they leave in the next 20 years, there's no need of anybody being promoted. And you're now being expensive for the job that you do because there's somebody underneath you that is going to be cheaper that could do the same job, right? So what are you going to do? You're going to be walked out. The other thing is that before I would say the biggest value add, right, that you had was if somebody was in a job for long enough, they had valuable information about the company.
Mm-hmm.
Not valuable information that they could like leverage and, you know, whatever, blackmail. I'm talking about how something works, right?
Yeah.
Good example is law firms, right? If you are a seasoned lawyer, you know the laws. You don't have to research every single topic. You can now start looking at things and say, okay, well, this is how this would work out. This is how this would work out. You have all this experience. Do you want to kick a person like that out? He's going to bring his knowledge with him, or she, whatever, right? But now with technology, there are ways for you to take that knowledge out of the person, right? And so you're going to be using things where you're going to be basically figuring out what they do, map out what they're doing. And so if somebody else takes their shoes or fills in their place, they don't need to speak to that person because all that information's already there. They just need to do a step-by-step guide. Yeah. So that's another reason in the future, if you get too expensive, you're going to be out.
You're going to be out. No, for sure. The other one I wanted to focus on is just limited career upside and just upside in general. This is something I've experienced as well. Sometimes when you're trying to move up in a corporation as well, moving up is sometimes tough simply because you as an individual, you could be the most amazing worker, a really hard worker, like very good at your job, etc. You're excelling at it, you're being rewarded, you win awards at work, etc. But sometimes in order for you to move up, a spot has to be created for you, right? Someone has to either above you, so someone who's more senior to either has to leave or be able to be promoted for you to then sort of move up. Right? Because even if you're great, and I used to think this as a kid, sometimes it used to be like, yeah, you work hard, you move up the corporate ladder. No, it's actually not like that. Yeah. You kind of have to wait for the spot to open up for you to move. Yeah. And you could be waiting for a long time, to be honest.
Till somebody dies or somebody moves to another company.
I've seen it in organizations. Some people wait for 7 years. Some people 8 years. They're making the same salary. They have a family. They have kids. They're trying to make ends meet with that same salary until a spot opens up. I don't know. For me to wait that long in a position, I don't know if that's for me necessarily. So that's another like downside as well about being employed. If we move over then to being self-employed, benefits of being self-employed, what would you say they are? I have a few here. You control your fate. You choose the customers you want to work with. You choose how much you want to make to a certain extent. And you set your own hours.
I don't know if I agree with the setting your own hours. I don't agree with that. No, I mean, you know what?
But somebody doesn't tell you how to spend your time. You spend it the way you see fit. Yes, clients, I understand. Clients tell you how to spend it. But, you know, someone else isn't telling you, hey, Horace, I need this done. I don't know.
Oh, so not maybe setting your own hours. When you said that, I thought maybe like when I'm going to work. That's not always, but I do get to pick what I want to do at what time.
Yes,
right?
Correct.
And so it's like, okay, if my mind is not being particularly creative right now, I don't want to go over this marketing deck. I might go look at something else. Right. Yeah. And I'll come back to it. And this is supposed to be done by tomorrow morning, but I'll get it done by the evening, and this way I can keep it moving.
Correct. Correct.
So that definitely, that's definitely something that I would say. You can set, but you can't set your hours in terms of like how much, right? You can't say I'm going to go home at 5 and that's it.
Yeah. No, you're on the whole time.
Yeah.
And you know, and this is the thing with a lot of jobs today as well, especially like if you work a proper white collar job, like to be honest with you, you're on all the time as well. You're required to be very committed to your employer. And sometimes when I sort of look at it, and one of the decisions I decided to become self-employed is if I'm working 24/7 for somebody else, why the hell am I not doing that for myself? Why not? It's just a shift. It's the same number of hours and stress, but let me just shift it and focus on my own thing as opposed to someone else's.
But it takes one thing that a lot of people don't have, though. It takes discipline. When nobody's behind your back, right, breathing fire down your back, telling you that you need to get something done by Friday, it takes discipline, which a lot of people don't have, I would say. I would argue. They have the discipline to show up. There's different levels of discipline, fine. Okay? It's a gradient, right? Yeah. But people who have the discipline to show up, for example, to school are going to get an graduate degree and maybe get a job. Yeah. Right? People who have the discipline to show up to 9 to 5 will keep that job. You know what I mean? People have the discipline to work from 9 to 6, may get a promotion, you know what I mean? Or something like that, or a raise, whatever. But like when you're on your own, you need to be able to just kind of figure out how you're going to plan your day and then work and stick to it and really understand yourself. You need to be self-aware at a very, I guess, high level. You can't be just like, oh, I know myself. It's like, no, you got to know how you work, when to push you. You're kind of like the coach and the athlete at the same time in a lot of ways.
Yeah. No, interesting. Would you say on this point about you choose how much you want to make and your fate, would you say you control that more at being self-employed or being employed?
No, definitely self-employed.
Okay.
Self-employed, yeah.
And why is that?
I don't know. I mean, first of all, for employed, it's obvious. It's like there's somebody else that's kind of figuring out whether you're going to get a raise, whether you're going to get promoted.
Somebody else determine. Yeah. Actually, on this one, you just gave me a good idea, but I'll let you finish your thought. Yeah, really?
Yeah, go.
Yeah. No, that the one key thing about being employed, which I don't like, is somebody else decides your fate.
Yeah.
As opposed to you deciding your fate. And I don't have a huge problem with that. When somebody tells me that, hey, Ali, you're not ready for that promotion, or Ali, you are not capable of doing this just yet.
Yeah.
And I am like in my mid-30s where I think I'm capable of doing everything. Like, I hate that. Like, somebody else shouldn't be telling me what I'm capable of doing. I know what I'm capable of. I don't need to be limited by somebody else. Somebody else doesn't need to tell me how to do it. Yes, I don't mind the advice or the mentorship. I appreciate that for sure. And I'm not an idiot. I'll take the advice for sure. It's amazing. But I don't like being told to put limits on what my ambitions are, what I'm capable of doing. I hate that.
Yeah.
I hate that.
It's more like there's a difference between a discussion and being like just dictated as to do this and do it this way and get it done by this time or whatever.
Correct.
So you're like kind of walking a very narrow line, and it's basically turn off your mind and only use it to walk on this line.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not how people's minds work.
Yeah. And my thing on this was when I was thinking about this particular point, when I was deciding whether or not I want to be employed or self-employed, was life is too short for you to work for somebody who tells you what your fate is or what you're capable of doing.
Well, I mean, traditionally, like these Fortune 500 companies that are showing up, they're like, oh my God, these are multinational. And this is like, oh my God, this is only in the past 100 or so years and stuff like that. That's not a good sign. It's a sign that the population as a whole has become drones.
Yeah.
Because traditionally the economy, if you start your own business, right, wealth stays like, you know, scattered so that there isn't a few people with a lot of power who can then go and influence the political system and whatever the negatives are for that, the haves and the have-nots. It keeps the whole society more flat and, in a way, self-egalitarian. You're not really doing anything to redistribute wealth. The people are smart enough to start their own business, and that used to happen. Everybody had to start their own business before. You didn't go and work with, like, I don't know, like a shoemaker or whatever just to be working there for the rest of your life. You wanted to make your own shoes. Right? Now, we are motivated to go work for the shoemaker, but it's just called Tesla. It's called Uber. You get what I mean? And we're willing to dedicate our entire lives. Before it was, I'm going to go to the best shoemaker. Only to learn how they make a shoe so that I can make one just as good, if not better. That was and then you have to discipline yourself to spend a certain amount of time and years to make sure you understood the craft, right? Now that's not the case. People are just career finance experts, right? And like, it's not like, I mean, what you did, I found, was commendable because you jumped through a lot of things to keep learning. Because if you want to be a financial professional, you have to be the best one. Right? And when you're done, now I'm going to use this to go somewhere else. Right? Because you went to investment banks, you went through just bulge bracket banks, you went to like tech firms, like consulting, everything, right? To make sure you got a really good understanding of finance and accounting from every single aspect. Whether you're an investor, whether you are a management staff, whether you're like an outside auditor, whether you're a government, like you got all that perspective of that one thing, right? So that is something where you're kind of figuring it out. You can't do that on your own. If you started your own thing back then, you would not know any of this stuff, right? There's no way you'd be exposed to it. There's no way, right? No way. So once you figure that out, then you start your own thing. But whereas you're like, all right, I figured it out, but I'm gonna keep working because I want to maybe get like director or whatever, managing director level. But that's just a title, you know.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, sorry, not
Yeah.
even if they pay you 2, 3, $500,000, $1 million freaking dollars, you realize even if they're paying you $1 million, that means they're making more than $1 million off of you.
Right.
Right, which means that if you sold your own services, you should be making more than $1 million. Right?
Yeah, no, I don't disagree. Because in any organization, the learning is like the diminishing marginal returns curve. It's like it's really high in the beginning, then it flattens over time.
Yeah, and then it's just like who sticks around the longest.
Exactly, it's a stamina game. It's like who sticks the longest. I mean, there are, let's be honest, downsides to being self-employed as well. I have some of those listed here, like long working hours. You have the stress. Sometimes there is financial instability simply because you're hunting for your own business. I think what you're saying in your case, the downsides of being self-employed are much less compared to the downsides of being employed. They're much more tolerable.
Yeah, but I wouldn't say there's financial. I don't agree with the financial instability. I feel there's more financial instability at a job. You just don't know it.
More financial instability at a job.
Yeah, when you're employed. Because the thing is, let's say market goes down, right?
Yeah.
You're making less. So instead of making like $1 million, you're making 100,000. Oh my God, like 10%. But you're making something, right? If you're working, it's either all or nothing. You're gonna get fired if there's a downside. So you're making zero. Now you're trying to find a job when there's like, especially if there's an economic downturn, when there's like probably enough people exactly with the same skill set. Everybody's trying to present themselves differently, and they're all hunting for the few jobs that are left, if any.
And you know what sort of also not tainted my experience, but the other thing that I saw live happening is I had a friend in his 50s who also, was laid off from his job, and then he was looking for another job for a while. And I was thinking, do I want to be in his shoes when I'm 50, being laid off and then looking for another job? And then with a family and a mortgage and all that stuff? I was like, I don't want to be in that position. So why would I want to be employed? Let me just be self-employed. It's not to say that self-employed is always amazing. There are downsides to it too. But I'd rather be in control of my fate as opposed to letting someone else being in control of it. What would you say? There are some people that just simply think being self-employed is too risky.
There is risk.
Right.
There's a lot on the line here. The reward is, I mean, when you first start off, there's a lot of risk. When you're in it after a while, if you're doing things right, you'll see that there is less risk, actually. But like in the beginning, especially if you're going into a business where there's like a lot of capital needed, right? So if you need like $100, $200, $1 million just to get set up, there's a significant amount of pressure on you, right? In a lot of service industries, you don't need a lot. Like in our industry, to just set up, right? The barriers of entry the biggest barrier is the accreditation itself.
Correct.
To get a CA or CFA, it takes time. You can't get around that, right? To get a law degree takes time. To write these exams, it takes time. Aptitude, you can't get around it.
Correct.
But once you're in, if you want to technically start, all you need is a laptop after that, right? Laptop and a phone line, and then that's it, right? Nowadays, you don't even need business cards. You just put up a website if you want one. There's tons of businesses out there. And it's surprising as it sounds to this day, with no websites or very crummy websites, making a lot of money. Right, but for the service type of industry, and I'm not even saying accounting and lawyer. You could be a tradesperson, right? You could be like a plumber or whatever. Oh, what do you need? You don't need a lot of equipment, right? And $1,000, $2,000 worth of equipment, you're set up. Now you go sell. That's it. So there's that. But the biggest risk is the setup, and then kind of being able to sell your stuff, and marketing is the biggest thing. I would say. So there is a zero, like you're in the negatives, and then slowly you break even, and then you go to the positive. Whereas employment, you're just like, the negative is not seen because you don't count your tuition and the years that you spent doing nothing in university before you get a job as a negative. You just see, okay, zero, now I'm at plus. So.
Yeah, interesting. So any takeaways on this topic? It's a very, very, very interesting one that, I know you're quite passionate about this.
I would say everybody should dip their feet in entrepreneurship at one point in their life or another. When I say dip your feet, I mean quit your job, dip your feet.
Yeah.
Right? Not like, hey, this is a side hustle, but you still got your other job that you're kind of leaning in on. I'm talking about if this goes down, I've got nothing left.
That's pretty dire advice. Anyways, all right. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode. We'll leave it there.
Take care, guys.
See you guys on the next podcast.